there's a lot of rumors out there, but I'm curious from a technologist standpoint too, is like, are there any existential threats to the core asset propping this entire ecosystem up?
Yeah. I'm not smart enough to say yes.
Yeah.
I would say, look, as much as I think Chris Larson is genius level, being able to see around corners about where the world's going, David Schwartz, the chief technology officer at Ripple, and really one of the architects of the XRP ledger. I mean, this guy's genius level on technology that I'm just like, I'm in awe of, being able to work with him. I did call him once, and I'm like, I had some conversation with somebody who's in quantum computing, and I was kind of like, should I be worried about this? And he walked me through why he felt this isn't like a little bit like that's a red herring. That's not a real thing. And he kind of explained to me why he felt that way. And so I won't bore people with kind of some of his arguments here, but I think there will be black swans. I don't think one of them is going to be the risk of quantum computing to the crypto market at large.
For people that aren't as deep into crypto and they're like curious, they're seeing there's a there obviously now. Who are some of the people that you really respect and admire kind of leading the charge in the crypto movement as a whole that you think people should be checking out?
I'm going to transparently kind of dodge this question a little bit. And the reason is some of the people I respect the most are intentionally behind the scenes.
Oh, interesting.
There's some people who I have immense respect for. And admittedly, I will share with you, some of them are kind of what I'd call Bitcoin maximalists.
Yeah.
But I respect the hell out of them. And, but yeah, they have chosen for a host of reasons that they're going to be in the background and try to influence. I will say, there's times when I would prefer that myself, but I also, but I will also say, like, the industry needs spokespeople.
Yeah.
They need leaders who are stepping forward and representing the industry with central governments around the world, with central banks around the world. And we can't all just be anonymous Satoshi Nakamoto's. And by the way, I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, just to be clear. I'm not pretending that. But I do know a bunch of people I have immense respect for who I think have had a very important in getting this industry to where it is. They just choose to stay in the background.
I respect that. I like that. I want to transition a bit more too on your operating career as a CEO, company builder. We had a dinner, I don't know, probably
maybe longer ago,
maybe even a year ago. I can't remember what the dinner was, but it was, I think, 14 CEOs, and some really interesting things came up in that dinner. And I remember walking away, I'm like, shit, this guy really knows how to operate companies. I got to talk to this guy more. One thing you've mentioned in the past that I thought was somewhat contrarian. You're like, companies aren't democracies. They're benevolent dictatorships.
Yeah. My team loves it when I say that.
I love that. Can you unpack that for us? What does that mean to you, and how a company is and should be run?
Well, I mean, I will start by saying, I don't think there's one size fits all. And when I hear like how it should be run, I kind of hear that. And I think, the way a Steve Jobs ran an organization versus the way Brad Garlinghouse runs an organization are different. I'm in awe of what Steve Jobs created over decades with Apple. I'm in awe of Elon Musk. I'm in awe of, we could go down the list. So I think it's frankly would be arrogant of me to say that the way it should be run. Now, that being said, and on your kind of core, I think one of the mistakes that some, frankly, younger CEOs sometimes make, and but that's also a generalization that maybe I should not say, because
when you're less experienced, typically.
Yeah. Like, management is not a popularity contest. It is not a democracy. Just because everyone thinks X, at the end of the day, I very much, I think my team would back this statement up, I listen a lot. And I am always interested in people's perspectives. But at the end of the day, it's not a vote. This is where I think it's important to take the company. And that's the privilege and the curse of being a CEO. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're right. I've certainly made mistakes. I'm sure I'll make more. I have a team around me who I hope is giving me the best counsel they can. And I hope I'm listening as best I can. But I think one of the mistakes people make is they try too hard to be popular. I mean, think about it, like Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is in a position as a shareholder of Amazon to ignore the quarterly stress for a long time. Like a lot of CEOs would have folded under the pressure of the expectations around quarterly earnings that would have prevented Amazon from being what it is today. That is an example of, it was not a democracy. He didn't care what these people were saying. He had a vision of what he was going to do, and wow, right? And I think the irony, of course, is the SEC is what has created the construct that drives these quarterly dynamics, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. And there has been frauds, and there have been bad actors.
Yeah, but
it also, in some ways, has limited how we are building and creating value and creating amazing customer experiences and changing the way the world works. So some people are more dictator than benevolent.
Yeah.
There's,
you got to find your style.
Yeah. And there's not just one size fits all, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's the challenging part. I'm curious for you personally, what's the hardest part of being a CEO?
I think one of the things that people don't fully understand, it's not just, I guess it's, it's lonely. You don't have, and I think there's the reason why some of these organizations are created. I'm a part of YPO, and I think people forget that, like, as you move up. When I was at Yahoo, I had a bunch of peers, like we were in it together, and I could commiserate and we could talk about stuff. But as you go up, there's fewer people until you're the CEO, and then like you're one. And in some ways, you can use your board as sounding boards on things, but in some ways that's not a perfect, they're not on your team exactly the same way. And so I think one of the hardest things is just understanding that it can be lonely and kind of growing into that over time.
Interesting. Is that something you just learn to deal with, or are there things that you can do to like combat that? Or
meditation?
Yeah. I'm doing about an hour a day every day.
I think exercise, for me, when I first started to feel those experiences, I used to do triathlons, and that was my meditation at that time, in a different way. Mm-hmm. But I don't have great advice on this. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. I like that. That's real. When it comes to building these companies, right? Because you've got Yahoo, AOL, Ripple, Hightail, I think formerly known as YouSendIt.
Yep. You've
operated a lot of different companies. Everyone talks about building A+ teams, right? Hire A players, build world-class teams. You build the team, then they build the product, and they make the company great. Throughout all your operating experiences, I'm curious, like, what are some of the nuggets you've discovered on how to actually attract and land A+ talent?
When you talk about that, the first thing, A+ talent is attracted to A+ places, right? And we all have seen that, right? Like, there's these mafias that have been created over the years, and you want to work with other really smart people. And one of the kind of expressions I have used that I think helps drive that in something I've tried to indoctrinate at Ripple is this idea of like, don't confuse activity with progress. Some people think if I'm doing a lot of things, like it gets to in annual review or something, it's like, they write up a self review, whatever, and you read it and you're like, okay, yeah, you did a lot of things, but it didn't actually move the ball forward towards the objective. I'd rather have somebody do a few things and move the ball forward a lot. And I think this idea of just really emphasizing, don't confuse activity with progress. And I think when you do that, A players, like, they want to be involved with progress. A players want to put their dent in the universe. A players can go make money at lots of places. You can't get them with money. You have to get them with like, hey, yes, you can make a lot of money at being here, but you can also have an impact on the world. And that to me is the A player experience, if you will.
I love that. When we extrapolate that out and you've got a whole team of A players and you have a world-class culture, at that dinner, we also talked about culture. And I thought you had the most concise, beautiful definition of culture. Can you share that?
I'm not sure which one it was. So.
You probably have a few of them. I think.
Well, one of the things maybe lead the witness a little bit more.
Yeah,
here.
I'm trying. I think, to paraphrase what you said, I think culture is who you hire,
who you fire,
and who you promote.
Yeah. That's an important one. I think people lose sight of this And at times I think Ripple has, I really value the culture. But what says more about your culture than anything else is who you hire. It's being smart about that. And there's sometimes you want to hire someone, but they're not a cultural fit. And it's hard to say no because, but recognizing this person just isn't going to fit in well here. And that's okay. But then also being smart about and quick about who you fire. And again, just in the last 6 months, we've had this experience. And I was sad to see somebody who I thought was really talented, but just they were not a good fit culturally. And then who you promote, that's the most important one. I think one of the things I'm most proud of at Ripple is there's a bunch of people on our leadership team that started. Our CFO now, he's been in the company, I think 7, maybe 8 years, and is promoted and promoted and promoted and is now the CFO. The president of the organization, Monica Long, she joined the company 10 years, more than 10 and a half years ago. And, was a director of X, Y, and Z. Now she's president of the whole company.
Wow. It goes back to that progress. A players want progress.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious what you'd have for me here, because one thing is to assemble the talent. And for us, we've got just a really world-class team. The hard part for me is developing the talent and then retaining the talent. Because if you don't develop them, they're going to leave somewhere else because they need that forward growth because you've hired incredible people. How do you think through maximizing the potential of each person on your team?
Yeah. Look, one of the things I think is hard as a manager is letting people have enough rope to hang themselves, right? That's an expression lots of people use, but there's definitely times when I see people doing something who work for me, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that. But you know what? I have almost never, in my roughly 25 years of professional experience, I have almost never told someone, you have to hire this person or you have to fire this person. There's a bunch of examples where somebody who's worked for me, I'd be like, I don't know why they're I don't get it. But that's if I have to tell them who to hire and who to fire, then they are the wrong person. Right? Why does if I don't trust this person who's working for me enough to make hire and fire decisions, then I should get rid of them, not the person underneath them. And so I think to the extent I've helped develop people along the way, it's being that coach and mentor, but not trying to play the game for them.
Interesting. Because otherwise you can't scale if you're always dropping yourself into everything.
Yeah. And look, there are times when I feel like, I can think of some times where I'm like, I knew it wasn't going to work, but it was okay. They needed to make that mistake and have that experience so they could have that scar tissue and be a better leader themselves.
Yeah.